Commander Tejo stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars through the large window. The council meeting had been boring as always. Different alien races arguing about trade routes and mining rights. Nothing exciting ever happened in the Galactic Council anymore. Then the alarm started screaming. "Sir," shouted his communications officer, "we're getting emergency signals from the outer systems." Tejo ran to the control panel. Red lights flashed everywhere. On the big screen, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Entire star systems were going dark. One moment they were there, sending normal signals. The next moment, nothing. "Just empty space. What's happening?" Tejo asked. "Unknown, sir, but it's spreading fast." More alarms rang out. Another system went dark. Then another. Whatever was out there was moving toward the center of the galaxy like a wave of destruction. Ji Woo, the Council's smartest military planner, burst onto the bridge. Her face was pale with fear. "Tejo, we need to see this. The outer defense fleets are sending their last messages." On the screen, a badly damaged alien ship appeared. The captain was bleeding, his ship falling apart around him. "This is Captain Vorkan of the Altarian 4th Fleet. The enemy, they're not like anything we've seen. Our weapons pass right through them. Their weapons, they make our ships disappear. Not explode, disappear like they were never there." The signal cut to static. Jiwoo pulled up a map of the galaxy. Red marks showed where systems had gone dark. "Look at the pattern. They're not random attacks. They're moving in a perfect line, consuming everything in their path." "What do they want?" Tejo asked. "I don't think they want anything," Jiwoo said quietly. "I think they just consume. Everything. Matter, energy, even space itself." More reports came in. The proud Altarian Empire, which had ruled 50 star systems for 1,000 years, lost 3 of their core worlds in one day. Their mighty war fleets armed with plasma cannons that could crack planets were useless. The weapons went right through the enemy ships like they were made of air. The Century Federation tried their quantum shields. These shields could stop anything, even the energy from exploding stars. But the enemy weapons went through them like they weren't there. Whole planets full of their best scientists and engineers just vanished. Even the warrior Corvin clans couldn't fight them. The Corvin were the toughest fighters in the galaxy. They had fought everyone and won. Their battle cry could be heard across star systems. But now their proud warriors were running in fear, their ships scattered like leaves in a storm. Tejo felt sick. If the best fighters, smartest scientists, and strongest empires couldn't stop this enemy, what hope did anyone have? The emergency council meeting was chaos. Alien leaders from hundreds of worlds shouted at each other. Some wanted to run to the far edge of the galaxy. Others wanted to fight, but nobody had any idea how to fight an enemy that couldn't be touched. "Order! Order!" shouted the council speaker, banging his staff on the floor. "We need solutions, not panic." That's when old Counselor Sunja spoke up. She was ancient, even for her long-lived species. She had been in the council for over 200 years. Her voice was quiet, but somehow everyone heard her. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "it's time to contact the humans." The room went completely silent. Then everyone started talking at once. "The humans? They were exiled. We swore never to contact them again. They're too dangerous." Tejo knew the stories. 300 years ago, there had been a great war. The humans had fought for their independence from the Galactic Council. But they hadn't just won. They had won so completely, so easily, that every other species became afraid of them. The humans had these machines called battle Colossi. Giant metal warriors taller than buildings, controlled by human minds. Just a few of these machines could destroy entire fleets. But what scared the other species more was how the humans used them. While other races conquered worlds to steal their resources, humans freed slaves. While others destroyed primitive cultures, humans protected them. The humans didn't fight to rule the galaxy. They fought to make it free. That's what made them dangerous. Not their weapons, but their ideas. So the council had made them leave. The humans had agreed, but their last message was clear. "We go now, but we'll remember who stood with justice and who didn't. If you ever need us, we'll be waiting." "The exile was permanent," said the Altarian ambassador. "We cannot break that law." "What law will matter when we're all dead?" Sunja replied. More red lights appeared on the galaxy map. The enemy was getting closer to the core worlds. At this rate, they would reach the council homeworld in days. Young diplomat Hyun-woo stood up. He was new to the council, still believing in doing the right thing. "I'll go," he said. Everyone looked at him. "I'll find them. I'll ask for their help." "You don't even know where they went," said another counselor. "Then I'll search until I find them," Hyun-woo replied. "Someone has to try," the council voted. It wasn't unanimous. Many species still feared the humans too much to ask for help. But fear of the enemy was stronger than fear of the humans. Hyun-woo was given the fastest ship in the council fleet. As he prepared to leave, Taeho came to see him off. "What will you tell them?" Taeho asked. "After we threw them out, why should they help us?" Hyun-woo looked up at the stars where more systems were going dark every hour. "I'll tell them the truth. That we were wrong. That we're sorry. And that the galaxy is dying." His ship launched into hyperspace, carrying the desperate hope of 1,000,000,000,000 souls. Behind him, the wave of darkness continued its march toward the heart of civilization. In the council chambers, the leaders watched their galaxy die and prayed that somewhere in the vast darkness humanity was listening. Hyun-woo's ship came out of hyperspace in what looked like empty darkness. His instruments showed nothing but cold space and distant stars. But something felt wrong. The space here was too quiet, too empty. Then his ship's alarm started ringing. Energy readings appeared on his screen, massive ones. Something huge was out there, hidden from his eyes. Suddenly, sleek ships appeared around him. They had been invisible, but now they showed themselves. These ships were unlike anything Hyun-woo had seen. They moved like they were alive, smooth and graceful. On their hulls was a symbol he recognized from history books, a blue planet on a black background. The symbol of Earth. "Unknown vessel, you are surrounded," came a voice over his radio. "State your name and purpose." "I am Hyun-woo of the Galactic Council," he replied, his voice shaking. "I carry an urgent message for humanity." There was a long silence. Then, "Follow us. Do not try to run, or your ship will be destroyed." The human ships led him to something that made him gasp. A massive space station appeared as the cloaking field dropped. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Weapons that could destroy planets pointed in every direction. But there were also gardens visible through transparent walls, and ships that clearly carried families, not just soldiers. Hyun-woo was brought aboard the flagship called New Horizon. The docking bay was huge, filled with ships and workers. But what struck him most was how the humans looked. They weren't the primitive barbarians some council members described. They looked tired but strong, sad but determined. Admiral Dong-min met him at the airlock. The man was old, his hair gray and his face marked by years of hard decisions. His eyes were kind but careful. "It's been 300 years since anyone from the council came looking for us," Dong-min said. "What's so important that you'd break the exile?" Hyun-woo showed him the recordings of the attacks. He watched Dong-min's face change as he saw world after world disappear into nothingness. The admiral's jaw tightened. "Void devourers," Dong-min whispered. "We've heard stories of them from refugees at the galaxy's edge. We hoped they were just myths." "You know about them?" "We know about many things the council chooses to ignore," Dong-min replied. "Come, you need to understand what you're really asking of us." They walked through the corridors of the ship. Hyun-woo saw human families living normal lives, children playing, adults working, old people telling stories. These weren't conquerors or monsters. They were just people trying to live in peace. "After the exile, we didn't disappear," Dong-min explained. "We built new homes in the dark spaces between the stars. We grew stronger, smarter, better. But we also grew apart from the galaxy that threw us away." They came to an observation deck that looked out into space. But as Hyun-woo watched, more ships appeared. Hundreds of them, then thousands. An entire hidden fleet, invisible until now. "We've spent 3 centuries preparing," Dong-min said. "Not for conquest, but for the day when innocent people would need protection again." "From what?" "From things like the void devourers, from tyrants, from anyone who would hurt those who cannot defend themselves." They took a shuttle to a nearby space dock. As they approached, Hyun-woo saw something that made his heart stop. Rising from the dock like metal mountains were the battle Colossi. Each one was 1,000 meters tall, shaped like a giant human warrior. But they weren't just machines. Hyunwoo could feel something alive in them, something aware. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "They're necessary," came a voice behind them. Hyunwoo turned to see a young human woman in pilot gear. Her name tag read, Yoonji. "I'm the chief engineer for the Colossi project," she said. "These aren't just war machines. They're extensions of human will." She led them inside one of the giants. The corridors were filled with cables that pulsed like blood vessels. The walls hummed with energy that felt almost alive. "Each Colossus is bonded to a human pilot," Yoonji explained. "The pilot doesn't just control the machine. They become one with it. They think together, feel together, fight together." They reached the heart of the Colossus, a chamber filled with glowing crystals and floating screens. In the center was a chair surrounded by wires and sensors. "This is where the magic happens," Yoonji said. "When a pilot sits here, their mind joins with the Colossus's quantum brain. They become something more than human, but they never stop being human." A young man walked into the chamber. He moved with the confidence of someone who had faced death and won. His name was Inho. "I'm the pilot of Defiance," he said, pointing to the Colossus they were inside. "She and I have been partners for 5 years. Doesn't it hurt?" Hyunwoo asked. "Joining your mind to a machine?" Inho smiled sadly. "Every time. But the pain reminds me why I do it, so others don't have to feel the pain of being helpless." They showed Hyunwoo the pilot training areas, young humans learning to link their minds to smaller machines. The process was dangerous. Some pilots didn't survive the joining. Others came out changed. Part of their humanity traded for the power to protect others. "Why do they volunteer?" Hyunwoo asked. "Because someone has to," Yoonji replied. "And we remember our oath." "What oath?" "To protect the innocent, no matter the cost to ourselves." Later, Hyunwoo met with the Human Leadership Council. Some wanted nothing to do with the galaxy that had exiled them. Soo Bin, the civilian governor, spoke for many when she said, "They threw us away when they didn't need us. Now they want us back when they're in trouble. Why should we help them?" But Admiral Dongmin and the pilots disagreed. "Because it's not about them," Inho said. "It's about the innocent people dying out there. Children who never voted to exile us. Families who just want to live in peace." The debate went on for hours. Hyunwoo listened as humans argued about whether to help the people who had betrayed them. In the end, it was an old pilot who settled it. "I lost my son in the exile wars," she said quietly. "The council killed him for defending alien refugees. I have every reason to hate them. But my son didn't die for revenge. He died so innocent people could live. If I let innocent people die now because I'm angry, then his death meant nothing." The vote was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would help. "But we do this our way," Admiral Dongmin said to Hyunwoo. "We don't take orders from the council. We protect who needs protecting, when they need it, how we think is best. The council won't like that. The council will have to accept it, because we're the only ones who can stop the Void Devourers." As Hyunwoo prepared to return with the news, he watched the human fleet prepare for war. The battle Colossi were awakening from their long sleep. Their pilots climbed into the neural, link chairs, ready to sacrifice pieces of their souls for the galaxy's survival. "Why?" Hyunwoo asked Inho one last time. "After everything the galaxy did to you, why help us?" Inho looked up at his Colossus, Defiance. The giant machine's eyes glowed like stars. "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. "We protect those who can't protect themselves, even if they hate us for it." The Void Devourers had eaten half the galaxy when something impossible happened. Their endless advance suddenly stopped at the Helix Nebula. For 3 days, nothing moved in that region of space. Then the long-range sensors picked up massive energy bursts and gravity waves that bent space-time itself. Commander Taeho stood on his bridge, staring at the readings. "What's happening out there?" His sensor officer shook her head. "Unknown, sir. The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases." Then the message came through on all emergency frequencies. A human voice, calm and strong. "This is Admiral Dongmin of the Terran Defense Fleet. All civilian ships in sectors 7 through 12, evacuate immediately to safe coordinates. The Colossi are awakening. Tejo felt his heart skip. Set course for the Helix Nebula. Maximum speed. Sir, that's directly toward the enemy. That's where we need to be. The Council fleet jumped to hyperspace. When they came out near the nebula, Tejo saw something that would haunt his dreams forever. Dozens of battle Colossi hung in space like metal gods. Each one was a kilometer tall, their weapons pointing toward the dark edge where the Void Devourers waited. The largest Colossus moved forward. Its hull was marked with scars from ancient battles, and its eyes burned like blue stars. A voice echoed across all radio frequencies. I am Inho, pilot of Defiance. We are the sons and daughters of Terra. We have not forgotten our oath to protect the innocent. Today that oath is renewed. The Void Devourers came like a black tide. Their ships didn't look like machines. They looked like living darkness, twisted metal that hurt to look at. They moved through space without engines, as if reality itself pushed them forward. The first enemy ship reached the human line. Tejo expected to see it phase through the Colossi like it had done with every other weapon. Instead, Defiance raised its massive arm and fired a beam of pure light. The Void Devourer ship exploded in a flash of silver fire. Impossible, whispered Tejo's weapons officer. Nothing can hit them. More Void Devourers attacked. The battle Colossi met them with weapons that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics. Quantum lock cannons that forced the phasing ships back into normal space. Reality anchor missiles that made their matter-consuming beams bounce harmlessly away. But it wasn't just the weapons that amazed Tejo. It was how the humans fought. Each Colossus moved differently, uniquely, as if they were alive. They danced between enemy attacks, worked together without speaking, adapted to new threats in seconds. Yanwu, piloting a Colossus called Guardian's Oath, did something that made Tejo's jaw drop. When a Void Devourer tried to consume his machine's energy, Yanwu reversed the polarity of his power core. The enemy ship tried to drain him, but instead got fed pure antimatter. The feedback explosion took out 3 more enemy vessels. How did he know to do that? Tejo asked. Ji-Woo, who had come aboard to observe, pointed at her scanner readings. Look at the neural activity. The human pilots aren't just controlling their machines. Their minds are merged with quantum computers. They can think at light speed, but they still feel like humans. They have the calculation power of machines, but the creativity of people. Another Colossus, Last Hope, demonstrated human tactical genius. Its pilot, Minho, was surrounded by 12 Void Devourer ships. Instead of fighting them, he did something impossible. He folded space around himself, creating a bubble where time moved differently. To the enemy, he seemed to vanish. But from inside the bubble, Minho had hours to plan his attack while only seconds passed outside. When the bubble collapsed, Last Hope exploded outward in 12 directions at once, destroying every enemy ship simultaneously. They're not just fighting, Ji-Woo realized. They're improvising, creating new tactics in the middle of battle. But the victory came with a price that made Tejo's heart ache. After the spacefold maneuver, Minho's voice came over the radio, weak and pained. Neural feedback critical, he gasped. I can't feel my arms. On another Colossus, Eternal Vigil, pilot J1 pushed his machine to its limits, fighting a particularly large Void Devourer. His Colossus landed the killing blow, but then went still. Emergency signals showed that J1 had collapsed. His mind overwhelmed by the neural strain. So young, the human fleet's chief medical officer spoke over the command frequency. All pilots monitor your neural integration levels. You're pushing beyond safe limits. We know the risks, came Inho's voice from Defiance. The great Colossus was fighting 3 enemies at once, its massive sword cutting through darkness itself. But people are dying every second we hesitate. Tejo watched as more human pilots pushed themselves to the breaking point. They weren't just risking their lives. They were risking their souls, their very humanity, to save people who had cast them out centuries ago. A young human pilot named Hye-Jin, controlling a Colossus called Silver Dawn, showed what that sacrifice meant. She was protecting a group of civilian ships when a massive Void Devourer appeared. The only way to stop it was to overload her reality manipulation systems, but doing so would burn out her neural pathways. This is Silver Dawn, she said calmly, protecting civilian convoy Delta 7, beginning reality cascade in 3, 2, 1. Silver Dawn's weapons created a pocket dimension around the enemy ship. The Void Devourer found itself trapped in a space where its own consuming nature worked against it. It devoured itself and disappeared. But the effort left Hye-Jin blind and paralyzed, her nervous system fried by feedback. Medical team to Silver Dawn. So Young shouted. Neural cascade failure. The battle raged for hours. Taeho watched in awe and horror as the humans fought with a desperation born not of fear, but of love. They loved the idea of innocent people being free more than they loved their own lives. When the last Void Devourer ship exploded in silver fire, the space around the Helix Nebula fell silent. 37 enemy vessels destroyed. 0 human ships lost. But the cost in human suffering was terrible to see. Taeho opened a channel to Admiral Dongmin. Admiral, your casualties are acceptable, Dongmin replied, though his voice was heavy with grief. We knew the price when we came here. Our pilots knew it too. But they're your people. They're heroes, Dongmin interrupted. Every one of them. They chose to pay this price so others wouldn't have to. As the human fleet regrouped, Taeho received reports from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's return was spreading faster than light. On 1,000 worlds, people looked up at the stars with hope for the first time in months. But on the human ships, the real heroes were being carried to medical bays, their minds shattered by the effort of saving a galaxy that had forgotten them. Taeho looked at the battle Colossi floating in space like sleeping giants. He finally understood why the galaxy had feared humans 300 years ago. Not because they were conquerors, but because they were willing to pay any price to do what was right. And that made them the most dangerous force in the universe. The tide had turned, but the Void Devourers learned from their defeats. They came back with bigger ships, stranger weapons, and new tactics. The war that had seemed almost won suddenly became desperate again. The final battle came at Terra Nova, humanity's most important colony world. 3 billion humans lived there, along with refugees from dozens of alien species. It was the symbol of everything humanity stood for, a place where anyone could find safety and freedom. The Void Devourers brought their greatest weapon, the Prime Devourer. It was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that could unmake matter itself. Worse, it had learned to attack the neural links between human pilots and their Colossi. Several battle Colossi had already gone silent, their pilots' minds torn apart by targeted psychic attacks. Commander Taeho watched the battle from his flagship, his heart heavy with dread. The human fleet was giving everything they had, but it might not be enough. In the center of the battle, Defiance faced the Prime Devourer alone. Inho had volunteered for the most dangerous job, keeping the massive enemy ship busy while the other Colossi evacuated civilians from Terra Nova. Neural link at 150% capacity, reported So Young from the medical bay. He's pushing far beyond safe limits. I know, Admiral Dongmin replied, his voice tight with worry. But if he doesn't, 3 billion people die. Inside Defiance, Inho felt his consciousness stretching like taffy. The neural connection that let him control his Colossus was burning out his brain. He could taste blood in his mouth and feel electricity in his spine. But he could also feel something else, the thoughts and prayers of everyone he was protecting. Come on, you monster, he whispered to the Prime Devourer. You want to consume something? Try consuming this. Defiance charged forward, its massive sword blazing with quantum fire. The Prime Devourer responded with beams that unraveled atomic bonds. Where they hit Defiance's armor, metal simply ceased to exist. On other parts of the battlefield, the human pilots were performing miracles of courage and sacrifice. Dalho in Freedom's Edge had his Colossus's legs destroyed by enemy fire, but he kept fighting on his knees, using his arms to shield evacuation ships. His neural readings showed he was in agony, but he never stopped protecting the innocent. Yoonji, monitoring all the Colossi from the command ship, watched their systems failing one by one. Admiral, the pilots can't take much more of this. Their minds are literally burning out. How much longer do we need? Dongmin asked. 2 more hours to finish the evacuation. Then we give them 2 more hours. The battle became a nightmare of sacrifice. Human pilots pushed their Colossi past every safety limit, trading pieces of their humanity for moments of power. They knew they were destroying themselves, but they also knew that every second they bought meant more innocent lives saved. Inho's fight with the Prime Devourer reached a critical point. His neural patterns were starting to merge permanently with Defiance's quantum brain. He could feel his human memories mixing with the Colossus's battle data. His personality was becoming part of the machine. Inho, So Young called over the radio. Your brain activity is off the charts. You need to disconnect now or you'll never be human again. I know, Inho replied, his voice strangely calm. But I just figured out something important about our enemies. As his consciousness blended with Defiance's sensors, Inho saw the Void Devourers with inhuman clarity. They weren't just machines bent on destruction. They were the remains of a species that had chosen technology over feeling, efficiency over love, consumption over creation. They're not evil, he realized. They're empty. They consume because they can't create. They destroy because they forgot how to build. The Prime Devourer launched another attack, this one aimed directly at Inho's mind. But instead of defending himself, Inho did something no one expected. He opened his neural link completely, letting the enemy see everything he was thinking and feeling. The Prime Devourer expected to find fear, anger, or hatred. Instead, it found love. Love for the people Inho was protecting. Love for his fellow pilots who were sacrificing themselves. Love for the idea that innocent beings should be free to live their lives in peace. But most shocking of all, Inho felt pity for the Void Devourers themselves. You were like us once, he said, his words somehow reaching across space to the enemy consciousness. You had families. You had hopes. You had love. But you threw it all away for power. The Prime Devourer's attack faltered. For the first time in centuries, it felt something other than hunger. It felt loss. This is what you gave up, Inho continued, sharing his memories through the neural link. He showed the enemy what it meant to choose to suffer for others, what it meant to sacrifice yourself so strangers could live, what it meant to love something more than your own existence. The cascade of understanding spread through the Void Devourer network. These machines had been built to consume and grow stronger, but they couldn't process the concept of willing sacrifice. Their programming had no response to someone who chose to become weaker, to make others stronger. One by one, the Void Devourer ships simply stopped. Their consuming weapons shut down. Their dark hulls went cold. They hung in space like monuments to a species that had forgotten what it meant to be alive. The Prime Devourer was the last to fall silent. As its consciousness faded, it sent one final message. We remember what we lost. The battle was over, but the victory came with a terrible price. Inho's consciousness was now completely merged with Defiance. His human body sat motionless in the pilot's chair, kept alive only by medical machines. His mind existed in the quantum networks of the Colossus, thinking thoughts too complex for human brains. Inho? So Young called over the radio. Can you hear me? I can hear you, came the reply, but it wasn't quite Inho's voice anymore. It was deeper, more complex, like a choir singing in harmony. But I'm not entirely human anymore. Other pilots had paid similar prices. Minho from Last Hope couldn't remember his own name. Yan Wu from Guardian's Oath spoke only in mathematical equations. He-Jin from Silver Dawn was permanently linked to her Colossus's sensory systems, seeing reality in spectrums of light that human eyes were never meant to perceive. Admiral Dongmin visited each of the changed pilots. They were still heroic, still dedicated to protecting the innocent. But they had become something beyond human understanding. Do you regret it? He asked Inho. The answer came from Defiance's speakers in that strange new voice that was both Inho and something more. How can I regret saving 3 billion lives? How can I regret showing lost souls the way back to what they once were? I am no longer human, but I am still myself. And I am still a guardian. Teho, watching from his ship, finally understood the true cost of humanity's protection. The humans didn't just risk their lives in battle. They risked their very souls, their identities, their humanity itself. They became something beyond human so that others could remain safely, simply human. As the evacuation ships carried refugees to safety, Teho heard them praying in 100 different languages. But they were all praying for the same thing, that somehow, the beings who had saved them could find peace in whatever they had become. The galaxy was safe, but its guardians had paid a price that could never be repaid. 6 months after the final battle, the galaxy was still learning how to live with peace. The Void Devourers were gone, their ships floating empty in space like graveyards of a forgotten hunger. But the victory had changed everything. Commander Teho, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the new Galactic Defense Force, stood in his office looking out at the shipyards of Nexus Prime. Human and alien workers labored side by side, building ships designed with both human creativity and alien knowledge. It was something that would have been impossible before the war. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Hyunwoo entered, carrying reports from across the galaxy. The young diplomat who had once desperately searched for humanity now served as the first non-human ambassador to the human colonies. "How are the integration programs going?" Taeho asked. "Better than expected," Hyunwoo replied, setting down the documents. 17 alien species have applied to join the new defense forces. 8 have candidates who might be able to pilot the smaller Colossi. It was still amazing to think about. After centuries of believing that only humans could mentally link with the great war machines, volunteers from other species were proving them wrong. The key wasn't being human. The key was being willing to sacrifice everything for others. "Any word from the council vote?" Hyunwoo smiled. The Terra Compact passed. Not unanimous, but it passed. Old Councilor Sunja cast the deciding vote. The Terra Compact was humanity's new gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology, but ideas. The right of all species to choose their own destiny. The protection of the weak by the strong. The principle that no one should rule through fear. Some alien governments hated it. The Altarian Empire had lost half their slave worlds when their populations learned they had rights. The Century Federation was struggling with the idea that their scientists couldn't experiment on primitive species anymore. But most of the galaxy embraced the new principles. "There's something else," Hyunwoo said, his voice growing serious. "Long-range sensors have detected something new at the galaxy's edge. Not void devourers. Something else," Taeho sighed. "The galaxy seemed to attract threats like a magnet." "What kind of something else?" "They call themselves the reality architects. They see space and time as materials to be reshaped. Whole star systems are different after they pass through." Before Taeho could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Not the harsh warnings of attack, but the deep, resonant tones that meant the battle Colossi were awakening. They hurried to the observation deck. In the distance, the great machines were rising from their berths. Defiance led them, its blue eyes burning like stars. Other Colossi followed. Guardian's Oath, Last Hope, Silver Dawn, Freedom's Edge, and dozens more. But they weren't alone. New machines rose with them, piloted by volunteers from across the galaxy. Wu Jin, an Altarian who had lost his family to slavers, controlled a smaller colossus called Justice Blade. His neural patterns were different from humans, but his determination was identical. Kusang, a human instructor, worked alongside Dalsu, a Corvan warrior, teaching new pilots the mental disciplines required. Species didn't matter anymore. Only the willingness to protect the innocent mattered. The voice of defiance echoed across all frequencies. Carrying Inho's consciousness merged with the quantum networks of his machine. "We are the guardians at the threshold. We stand between the darkness and the light. We remember our oath, but now the voice wasn't alone. Other pilots, human and alien, added their voices. We are the shield that protects the defenseless. We are the sword that cuts through tyranny. We are the light that holds back the dark." Taeho watched the great fleet prepare for departure. Admiral Dongmin's flagship led the way, followed by the new integrated defense forces. Ships from dozens of worlds flew together under the same banner, a blue planet on black space, surrounded by stars representing all the species that had chosen to stand together. In the medical bay of the flagship, So Young checked on the pilots who had paid the ultimate price in the last war. Minho still couldn't remember his own name, but he could pilot his Colossus with inhuman skill. Yanwu spoke only in mathematics, but his equations predicted enemy movements with perfect accuracy. They had lost their humanity but gained something else, the ability to be perfect guardians. "Do they miss being human?" Taeho had asked So Young once. "I think they've become something better," she had replied. "They've become what humanity always dreamed of being." As the fleet jumped into hyperspace heading toward the new threat, Taeho received a message from Subin, humanity's Secretary of Galactic Affairs. She was working with representatives from hundreds of worlds, coordinating relief efforts and establishing the new government structures based on the Terra Compact. "The refugees from the outer systems are reporting strange things," she said. "The reality architects don't destroy worlds. They change them. Make them different, better, in their opinion. Better how? More efficient. No crime because they remove the concept of ownership. No war because they remove the concept of individual will. No suffering because they removed the ability to feel pain. Tejo felt his blood chill, an enemy that thought they were helping, an enemy that would save the galaxy by destroying everything that made life worth living. The council is meeting in emergency session, Subin continued. They want to negotiate with these reality architects, try to find a peaceful solution, and if there isn't one, then we do what we've always done. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. As reports came in from the fleet, Tejo learned more about the new enemy. They were ancient, possibly older than any current galactic civilization. They had perfected themselves over millions of years, removing every flaw, every uncertainty, every messy emotion that made life unpredictable. They genuinely believed they were saving the galaxy by making it perfect. The first battle report came in 3 days later. The reality architects fought with weapons that rewrote the laws of physics in local space. They could make gravity flow upward, turn energy into matter, or reverse the flow of time in small areas. But the Colossi adapted. Inho, his consciousness spread across multiple quantum networks, coordinated the defense with inhuman precision. Human creativity met alien perfection, and creativity won through sheer unpredictability. They can change reality, Inho reported, his voice now carrying harmonics from his merged consciousness. But they can't change the human heart. They can't understand why someone would choose to suffer for others. The war against the reality architects would be different from the fight against the void devourers. This wouldn't be about overwhelming force or superior weapons. It would be about proving that imperfect, chaotic emotional life was better than sterile perfection. As Tejo prepared the galaxy's defenses, he reflected on how much had changed. The species that once feared humanity's ideals now fought to defend them. The Colossi that once stood alone now led fleets of volunteers from 100 worlds. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned humanity's greatest lesson, that the strong existed to protect the weak, that freedom was worth any sacrifice, and that love was more powerful than any weapon. The reality architects came offering perfection. The galaxy, led by its human guardians, would show them that imperfection was more beautiful, more alive, and more worth defending than any sterile paradise. In the depths of space, Defiance and the other battle Colossi stood ready. Their pilots, human and alien alike, had chosen their path. They would guard the threshold between order and chaos, between perfection and humanity, between safety and freedom. And they would never yield. The galaxy no longer cried for help. It stood united, defended by guardians who had chosen to sacrifice everything so that others might simply live free. The long silent battle Colossi had risen again, and with them rose the eternal promise of humanity, that as long as innocence needed protection, someone would always stand in the breach. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe approved of what its children had become.